Bonjour from the south of France. You are watching Future Boutique presented by Microsoft. I'm your host, Jeffrey Cologne, from our breezy terrace and noisy terrace studios here on the Croisette in Cannes, France, with my co-host, Steve Kearns of LinkedIn. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jeff. Very, very glad that this is all happening, that I've experienced this. Can't believe it's coming to a close.
It's been a wild one. It's been interesting in terms of all the activity. We've had very sunny weather, and it's been pretty noisy here too. They keep emptying a lot of these rosé bottles behind us. So if you hear that, that's what that sound is.
Absolutely. It's definitely a place for people to come and not only be inspired, but to have a good time.
Now, it seems like it's a new day for Microsoft. We have taken a different approach this year. What are some things that you've seen that excite you?
Yeah, so I actually just came back from a talk with Kathleen Hall, who's the corporate vice president of advertising for Microsoft. And she had a chat with Common, who, is one of Microsoft's spokespeople. He's an incredible actor, musician, sort of jack of all trades in the entertainment space. And they talked about how Microsoft is really starting to, turn over a new leaf in the amount of freedom it gives its creatives. In its advertising message, I think that's coming through in a lot of the stuff we're doing here and a lot of the stuff that folks are seeing at home. So, Kathleen talked about how she instructs people like Common, but also her own in-house creatives to just go out and have fun and to tinker and to play with things. And I think that's a very modern mindset for a brand that's as strong and as revered as Microsoft. It takes a lot of courage to say, I'm going to let go of the reins a little bit and let these really creative, brilliant individuals start telling stories on behalf of my brand. And I think that's what's starting to emerge here, is this idea of this new Microsoft, this modern Microsoft, telling stories of how technology can help empower people, how it can help cure disease or solve problems in the world that we couldn't have solved 20 years ago. So I think it's a momentous shift, and it's exciting.
Speaking of Common, we have a special surprise for you, so make sure you stay tuned to the end of our episode. But first, we wanted to talk a little bit about Microsoft, where it's going, and it's no better than to talk to Bob Bejan, who's been coming to Cannes probably the longest of those who work at Microsoft. Let's take a look. All right, we're back on the Croisette with someone I love talking to here at Microsoft, one of my favorite people actually, Bob Bejan, General Manager, Global Experiential Marketing, or something that deals with experiential marketing.
Exactly, it's all about the experiences.
And Bob has been, you've been coming to Cannes forever.
Yeah.
So you sort of know, how this place has changed. How has it changed, and what are some of the things that you've seen that are really, exciting you?
Well, I'll tell you, it's been an incredible change. I remember coming here the first time, dating myself now, 1995, and it was a little sleepy creative show. All took place in the Palais, nothing outside at all. A lot of conversation about creativity, which, excitingly, is the thing that's still very much alive and well at Cannes. But the thing that's been so amazing is the migration of the show down the Croisette all the way to these huge kind of, hotels that are now built on the beach. And then I think the other part of it was the digital transformation of this show that really probably started almost, 15 years ago. And it's really kind of transformed this thing into kind of the next generation of media, really led the way and started to kind of this trend of everything becoming a media meeting, everything about advertising and relationships between brands and consumers. So while it's maintained the creativity and the excitement around creativity and a great place to come and see it, it really has evolved into this kind of global media event.
Now, big topic this year. It was bubbling last year. Artificial intelligence seems to almost be everywhere in terms of how it intersects with creativity. What are some other things you're seeing here that you're like, wow, I want to learn a little bit more about that, what companies are doing, some of those topics?
Well, one of the things, I think the thing for me that's maybe one of the most interesting is the rise of data, right? So the last 5 or 6 years, this incredible rise of data and the fear of programmatic buying and the death of advertising and all of this. And what's been so interesting this year is over and over again, the sessions I've been to, talking about the need, in light of all of this onslaught of data and understanding, this return to pure creativity, emotional connection, and great storytelling. And it's very encouraging to me, because it's something I've always believed. But it's great to hear kind of the world's pendulum swing back now, kind of against the backdrop of nothing but data, to going, where's the connection? Where's the emotion? Where's the story?
And what are some, what are some things in terms of, storytelling that, that excite you? AR, VR, some new sort of communication methods. What are some things that we definitely see here that we might not see anywhere else that are exciting you?
Well, I think what's interesting for me, anyway, is this notion of kind of using data and insight to drive creativity, and the breakdown of this kind of, I think, this very false, kind of perception of most creative people that data is the killer of creativity, and I believe just the opposite, and always have. So it's great to see that, the way people are using data to kind of create new insights and then develop creative ideas that you just haven't seen before. I think the thing that I find interesting about VR, for example, having been involved with it since kind of like, the 90s, is all the problems are still the same. The technology is so much better than when it was first starting, 92, 93. But the problem is still nobody looks good in a headset. You still get hat hair at the end of it. And, people are still not figuring out, like, what's the story that you build inside that virtual world.
Awesome. Bob Bejan, love the fact that you joined us here on Future Boutique.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I wish the camera was facing the other way, though. It's an incredible view.
And you got your can outfit on as well.
Absolutely. It's very important to do so. Fashion at Cannes, very important.
So Steve and I were just discussing in between some bits here that the Cannes Festival of Creativity isn't just a festival of creativity about advertising or marketing, but also a festival of creativity around music and fashion. And fashion's really interesting because it ties into fashion marketing, which has changed so much in that vertical. What are some of the trends you've seen in terms of fashion marketing over the last year, and how is it so different?
Sure. So first off, I have to back up a little bit and just say Cannes fashion in its entirety is a wild thing in itself. So, when I found out I was going to Cannes, when my coworkers did the same, it's this crazy, scurrying to find linen, to find loud colors, to find florals. It's a wild type of outfit that you can wear to a work event. And as you can see here, a very casual type of outfit that you can wear to a work event. But, really double clicking into this idea of fashion marketing, we're finding that this direct to consumer play is becoming so much larger and so much more prevalent, because people don't need to go to a store anymore and physically try something on, or see a traditional out-of-home advertisement to want to buy something. These brands are figuring out, let's take out the middleman, and let's really meet people where they want to be, or meet them in a context that feels comfortable. So, Instagram is huge for this. All of the social media platforms where you can now just click on something and buy it. It's a crazy world coming from, the context of 5 or 10 years ago when you had to go to a physical brick and mortar store. So that's a big trend right there. And, you're also starting to see clothing brands and brands in general say, what do we stand for? What is that message or that social good of what is bigger than just selling a pair of jeans, or what is bigger than selling a t-shirt? And I think we're finding brands are starting to embrace that, which I think it's great, and it's a welcome change.
Speaking of fashion, I was able to sit down with a woman the other day. I consider her sort of a superhero, comic book character, a force of nature, a fashionista. And that's Abigail Posner, who's the director of strategy at Google. So let's take a look at the interview we conducted with her. Our continuing coverage on Future Boutique. I'm joined by one of the brightest strategic minds, a strategic planner, a great speaker, needs to write a book. Google's Abigail Posner. How are you, Abigail?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having me, Jeffrey.
So, I love the fact that you're involved in fashion. You write a fashion blog. You talk a lot about the intersection of fashion and technology. What does that industry vertical really need to be prepared for, since many of those brands are here, as well as their agency representation is here? What kind of advice could you give to that world?
Yeah, well, there is so much change going on in fashion, and in the whole world for that matter, right? Thanks to technology. You can't avoid technology anymore. But technology is our friend. And in fact, in some of the most creative fields like fashion, technology can be an awesome partner to us. And I know there's hesitancy. I feel it amongst my fashion friends. I feel it amongst my clients that, what's happening with something like AI or machine learning? Is it taking over the world? Is it forcing us to be less creative, right? And especially in a world like fashion or like advertising, we're at Cannes, for example, where creativity is king. When you have something like technology that's taking up so much of the headspace, people are nervous. But I'm so excited by what technology can offer, particularly in fashion, because of a few reasons. One is, no question that even though machine learning, which at its core really looks at massive amounts of data, right, and starts showing you themes or trends with data, even though it is highly technical, the creative process doesn't stop there, right? It just starts there. So what it does is it allows us to do all that stuff that we don't normally want to do because it takes so much time. It does it for us, and then we can actually analyze it. So imagine if you could look at all of these trends in a nanosecond. And it's not predictive, but you can start seeing like, ooh, people are starting to get interested in a certain color, or people are starting to get interested in a certain look, or a certain cut, or maybe it's unisex, or maybe it's hypersexual, right? We get a sense of that in such a short amount of time thanks to something like machine learning that can look across so many pieces of data. The other thing that's interesting is that it actually allows us to be more creative in that it can start making permutations for us, right? Before we even know what would sell, what we could do is like, imagine you have, because it analyzes what people do and what people are interested in, imagine it could take certain cuts, certain styles, certain sizes, certain colors, and create thousands of different permutations, offer that back to people, and see what people are interested in, and through that, then designers know what to create and know it will sell, right? I mean, so much lands on the cutting room floor, and we're stuck holding the bag, right? And spending tons of money, investing tons of money in styles that end up failing. In this case, you actually can learn from machine learning and only put out there that which, well, we know will work.
It's funny you bring this up because we're seeing lots of direct-to-consumer Instagram brands, specifically in fashion now, almost trying to use this model where they're not making 1 billion pairs of shoes. They might actually be getting orders and saying, all right, we're going to make 100 of those, and then people are able to actually personalize that, which actually makes me want to ask this question because we both have children, and my kids love stuff personalized now. I'm sure yours do as well.
Absolutely. How
does it change, how does all this machine learning change the personalization game for direct-to-consumer, small fashion brands?
Well, personalization is interesting because on the one hand, I think I know what I like. And like Nike ID, right? Like I can pick this color, I can pick this shape, whatever. But sometimes we don't even know what we like until we see it created for us. We need to be inspired. And so what machine learning can do is not just target you and know exactly what to feature for you, but also sees the patterns of your behavior and says, you know what, she likes this color, she likes this kind of style, she has this kind of attitude, she has this kind of job. Let's create something through all of that data that reflects who she is, and she may not have even designed it herself because she didn't know what to even imagine, and we're imagining it for her. And that's really what fashion is all about. It's about inspiration, about creativity, right? And even if the machine learning creates an algorithm that can somehow create these different permutations of ideas, it's still up to the human being to look at it and figure out, is this going to work? Is this on trend? Does this feed the social norms that we're living in? Does this reflect social values? I mean, machine learning can't do that. And we all know that, and none of my techie friends expect that. We expect a partnership.
Now, what have you seen here while you've been at Cannes that, we're asking everyone this, it's exciting you? What do you think is pretty interesting, unique, different, that you're getting some inspiration from?
Having been in the ad world for a long time, to me, Cannes was all about advertising agencies as we know it. And that's where I was born and bred, right? I know you were too. And I still love my friends in that world, and I still partner with them. But what I'm seeing more and more on the Croisette are all the other aspects of what drives a brand. Fashion brands, for example, music companies, for example. I mean, yes, obviously the tech companies and the programmatic companies and so forth, but it's so exciting to see the tentacles by which the brands are, how far-reaching they are in terms of the effects they're having on people, and therefore all these industries that are playing into that. I love that. Content creation, for example. I love that we're doing these podcasts, right? We wouldn't have done these 5 years ago. It was like podcasts and videos, and why would you do that? We're going to talk about ads. But this is all an extension of how a brand wants to express itself.
Love it. Abigail Posner, thanks so much for joining us here at Cannes for Future Boutique.
Love it. Thank you so much. Enjoy.
Artsy's mission is to make art accessible to anyone with an internet connection. We want anyone and everyone who has the passion for the arts to be able to connect with them and interact with the arts just through the medium of the internet.
As the curator of Artsy Project, I chose Studio Drift because I thought they would be an amazing fit for this project. Given that it required an understanding of technology as well as a conceptualization of how one can interact with a broad public, they really stood out.
Drift focuses on projects that combine nature with technology in relationship to humankind.
We use technology to come closer to our intuition and to our nature. We like to make things become possible because we make them.
The amazing thing we've been able to do is Armory Show is the longest fair in New York. It attracts over 60,000 people every year. It brings together about 200 galleries of the world's top representation of art. We're bringing a very new experience, combining and fusing this sort of digital space with our physical environment. There are 3 concrete pillars that stand in a booth.
When you put the HoloLens on, you see an augmented extension of those blocks going up.
But they don't just stand there. They actually do the impossible. They break, they waver in the wind, there's debris coming off them, and yet it's very beautiful and very organic.
The real world is blending with the virtual world, and you don't have to switch anymore between this focused on a screen and the real world. You're completely in one environment.
With a piece like the HoloLens, it could lead to a better contact to your environment and to the people around you.
This cycle between artists dreaming things and technologists building is what keeps the human cultural evolution going.
Art is very physical, and I don't think we're ever looking to replace art.
What do you think about a consumer who can sit at home and say, Artsy, put the Louvre on my wall. You can bring Mona Lisa into your home for real.
If you don't live in a big metropolis like New York or Hong Kong or Paris and don't get to have the museums, you suddenly have access. As a collector, of course, it also benefits you because you suddenly have all the world's museums, all the world's art fairs and galleries instantly accessible.
An innovation like HoloLens allows artists and curators to create these new experiences that didn't exist before, but also these are the same artists who are now dreaming up what technology can do 10 years from now, right? And Microsoft was a big part of why this is possible today.
Our continuing coverage on Future Boutique, I am joined by John Bond, who, for those who don't know, make sure you look it up, check out who he is on Wikipedia. But John, how are you?
I'm good. I'm a recovering ad guy. Before the camera started, Jeff asked me my title, and I just came up with it. I'm on step 10 of a 12-step process, so don't tempt me with any CEO jobs of agencies. Thank you.
Now, you have built 2, maybe even more, prestigious agencies that you ended up selling off to holding companies, etc., and you're now sort of moving out of that game. I mean, what's the future really look like in terms of the agency model, and what's a better model to move toward that in your eyes?
Any model? No. Well, the real problem is this lawyer in Boston in 1918 who started billing by the hour, and that just completes, it creates a disconnect between the value of what I deliver and, how many hours I worked if I were a window washer or something. And that's what screwed up the whole business. So I think now more and more marketing is measurable every day. And what that means is the agency should get rewarded for the results. And every industry where people get rewarded for results has this huge delta between the highest paid stars and the low performers. But in advertising, that, because it's by the hour, no matter how good you are, you're going to get that much, right? A little bit more than somebody else. But look, on Wall Street or Hollywood or anything like that, or as I always say, if you could only have bit parts, no one would be a waitress while they're trying to get an acting gig, right? So I think that there'll be a resurgence in the industry, and they'll be able to reward the star performers who create value for the client, and that's going to be the next golden age in the business.
Wow. Now, do you think if agencies built some more intellectual property, they'd be more valuable? Because, like you said, you're just billing time, it seems like. You don't really have much IP. So is that like an area that you're sort of now concentrating on a little more?
The area I'm concentrating on is the IP is me. Because that I understand. Now, I'm doing a lot of work directly with emerging brands where I might invest some money and be the part-time marketing creative director, and then as the company increases in value, someone buys it, Microsoft, I don't know. And then I get a return on the value I helped create, so actually what I'm doing is a new model, but it's actually philosophically closer to what the agency business was when I got into it.
Now, you are, sort of notorious for the pop-up shop, guerrilla marketing, all these really cool things and trends that have sort of come back around because marketing's like cyclical. I mean, what excites you about sort of seeing some brands use things you did 35, almost 40 years ago?
Oh, nothing. It gets me mad that I didn't get some patent or some royalty. No, that stuff doesn't excite me because, look, I always want to do the next thing because I don't want to compete with 100 people doing the same thing, frankly. But if you do the next thing that's too far out, there's no business there. So it's like, you look at the weather. The weather forecast is a little worse each day. You just want to predict the weather one day ahead of everyone else. And that's really what I look for. The thing that's just about to hit, but not everyone knows about it quite yet.
So, John, you've been coming to Cannes probably for a long time. How have you seen it evolve? What have you seen change, and what excites you about it still, that you've come all the way here to the French Riviera?
The rosé is much better. No, what excites me about it? Oh, it's moved from a celebration of creative ideas to this, massive event with everybody here, and that's exciting. But I wonder if it's lost a little bit of the focus on, hey, we're here to celebrate really great ideas. Now, I think what a great idea is evolving from, it used to just be an ad campaign, but I still think it should be more about celebrating the ideas. And I think it's that some people come and don't even go to see any of that stuff. So that's I think how it's evolved, and in some ways devolved.
I love it. Wise advice from John Bond. Thanks for joining us here on Future Boutique.
Thank you very much. Nice to have me.
We're back on Future Boutique, and Steve, it was really great to sit down with John Bond, who I find to be a legendary voice in the field of marketing. He hasn't just sold one of his agencies to a holding company, but two. And he's sort of the godfather of disruptive marketing. He used guerrilla marketing before many other people. He used street art marketing before others. He used the concept that we're all familiar with, known as the pop-up shop. So a lot of fun to sit with him. Now, we're here at the end, unfortunately. This is all coming to an end. This terrace studio of ours that we've used as our office for the past week, we have to say goodbye to it. What are your 3 takeaways this year here at Cannes?
Yeah, so first off, let me just say what an experience this has been. You know, as a first-time attendee to Cannes Lions, just the amalgamation of creativity and of celebration that happens here in the south of France for 1 week every single year is just, it's such an enriching moment for any marketing or advertising professional. So I think, you know, as I think about, and on my very long flight home, what my takeaways were. I mean, I'm just going to be so inspired when I'm ideating on my next campaign, and I think a lot of people feel that way. That's the big value add of Cannes Lions or any sort of industry festival like this. So in terms of the big takeaways, I think it's something that I find personally exciting. The first is this idea of the return to creativity. So not that we've ever, you know, totally lost our way, but I think with the prevalence of data, with you know, the fact that we have sort of removed ourselves from the creativity conversation for a little while, we realize that, oh wait, this is, you know, this needs to be what we call at LinkedIn P0, or our first priority. You know, furthermore, building on that idea of rebuilding the human connection. Trust in brands is falling, and rebuilding that human connection is really only going to be the path forward for people who work in marketing, who work in advertising, who communicate on behalf of these big brands every single day. And then finally, it's remembering that before you overcomplicate things, at the core of what we do is storytelling. Every piece of content we create, every you know, ad we run, there's a story behind it. And it's how do you bring that story to the forefront and really, you know, double down on the fact that, you know, we are just communicating person to person, whether it's B2B, B2C, agency on behalf of a brand, whatever that may be, you're just telling a story. So, you know, I think that has been the thematic approach to Cannes this year is everyone coming together, putting down their phones and saying, how do we rebuild trust with audiences? How do we get people to pay attention when they're seeing so many marketing messages every single day? And again, you know, it ladders back to creativity, humanization, and storytelling. Those are the big things for us, and it's really cool. So.
Speaking of, we want to thank our sponsor, Microsoft, for allowing us to be your storytellers this week here in Cannes for Future Boutique. And at the top of the show, we said we had a big surprise for you, and we do. So for Jeffrey Colon and on behalf of Steve Kearns, this is Future Boutique. We'll catch you next time.
It feels good to be out here, y'all. This is a blessing. Out on the ocean. It's lit tonight. Yes, yes, y'all. And you don't stop until the beat, y'all. And you don't stop. Yes, yes, y'all. And you don't stop. Don't stop. I found hip hop, y'all. Let's take 'em back. Take 'em back. We going. Yeah. Where we going, y'all? Where we going? Say what? We going. To all my people here, we going way back. We going. Yeah. How many of y'all like hip hop culture? Yeah. When you read it, when you read it.
I met him when I was a little girl. He gave me poetry. He was my first.
A 1, 2.
But in my heart I knew I wasn't the
to the beat, y'all, and you don't stop. A freak, freak. We used to say like freak, freak, y'all, and you don't stop. Or we'd be like, say ho, say ho. Or we'd be like, oh, the ladies say ah. The ladies say ah. All the fellas, make some noise. Where you at? All the fellas, make some noise. Let me hear you say yeah. Yeah. Say yeah. Yeah. We used to do it like that. But it's something else we used to say. Well, now we say it even more. Now, throw your hands in the air, get them high. Yeah, yeah. All the girls pass that to your man and what? Get them high. I ain't never tell you to put down your hands, get them high. And if you're losing, I think we do it again. Get them high. Yeah, get them high like noon on the moon or a room filled with smoke, a hype filled with dope. Y'all assumed I was doomed out of tune, but I still feel the notes with real brother quotes. Real rappers is hard to find, like a remote. Control rappers out of. Used to, but still got love. That's why I abuse you, who are not thugs. Rock clubs like Tiger, Woods in the Hood. So I have my own reality show called Soul Survivor. I stole on lava, brothers and you. Use a trick, I got ones that are thicker than you. How could I ever let your words affect me? They say your pop is dead, I'm here to resurrect me. The boss is too sexy to even make songs like these. Nobody know your name like Alicia Keys. I appreciate y'all. Keep spreading the love, keep doing the work we doing. We love y'all, appreciate it. Let's have fun tonight, y'all. God bless.